Welcome, my lords, to the Well-Earned Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us on the Walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and, of course, discuss life. We're glad to have you as part of our fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. And Seth and I have not podcasted for over a month now, so
It's probably
good
been
to be
like 6
back
weeks.
At least, yeah. Good to be back in the rhythm, back in the flow of it. So I'm going to jump in with Seth with some babbling like Butterbur. Check in. First of all, also, if you're watching on X, if you're watching our live stream here on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, hit us with a comment, like, retweet us, whatever you want, and maybe we'll answer your question as we go through. But I'm going to babble like Butterbur for a little bit with Seth. So what's going on, man? I see you look like you've just watched the end of the Return of the King. Hobbits are sailing away into the Undying Lands, and it looks like you're just, brought to tears, man. What's going on?
It's been rough. You know that scene? I'm just brought to tears. The puffy eyes, the nasal congestion. It has nothing to do with allergies. I mean, right. It's just 100% Frodo leaving for the Undying Lands and the breaking of the Fellowship one final last time. It really got me. But no, in all reality, I've just been working outside all day, and apparently it takes a couple years for allergies to really set in. And I'm about 3 summers in now up here in Michigan. And after working outside all day and going for a run, I'm just completely inflamed everywhere. So I'll try to mute out or whatever if I have to sneeze, but try not to blow out anybody's ear holes.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no holes should be blown out during the making of this podcast.
I would concur. Well, how about you? How's your day been?
It's been good. I am solo dadding it right now. Ariel's at one of our church events called Jesus Prom, where we have people with special needs come and they get pretty much their own prom. So Ariel's a buddy. She's going to be paired up with somebody with special needs, and she's going to stay with that person the entire night. They got karaoke, they got food, they've got dancing and all kinds of fun. So this is right in her wheelhouse. This is what she used to do for work, stuff like this similar. So she's having a lot of fun, but yeah, that means I'm by myself. Got the baby monitor here.
There you go.
5-year-old on the other side of this wall. Hopefully the sound machine is loud enough to drown us out here as we podcast. And of course, got the little doggy just hanging out.
Wow, there, just big chilling over there on the couch. I love it.
Big chilling. Yeah, it's been good, man. It's been good. Ariel's been making sourdough. She made sourdough bagels for us this morning, which was also amazing.
Nice.
So yeah. Good stuff. And she's been killing it in the gym. I'm just gonna be bragging on my wife for a little bit, sorry, but
nothing wrong with that.
She hit 130 on bench for 3 sets of 3. Oof. And then 95 for 12.
Good for her.
I mean, she's on it, man. It's pretty cool. Pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, no kidding. Amanda's started getting into a fitness routine as well after. I mean, we went through the last month of Evelyn getting sick, then I got sick, then Amanda got sick, then Evelyn got sick again, and it was miserable, and everybody fell out of their workout routine, so Amanda's jumping back in it too, and there's nothing wrong with bragging on your wife. It's awesome to see, and those are some good numbers for her too, so that's nothing to scoff at. Good for her.
No, it's very good. Very good. But it has to be said, I've tweeted it before. This is peak masculinity when you're able to put both kids down by yourself. I even had to do dinner. I had to do the whole 9 yards by myself. And
you mean being a parent? Isn't that what it's called?
But yeah, no, it's called being a parent.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Kids are alive, and we had burgers tonight, which is great. Ooh. Even Bear, he had little bites of burger, and he ate 2 strawberries.
Nice.
A bunch of.
Do you cut him up, or do you just let him go?
We did let him go, and then he was getting too big of bites, and so I just kind of cut him up put him on his little table. He'll just smack it, grab it, put it in his mouth.
That's amazing. Really Evelyn loves steak. Yeah, really, she's doing really well lately. We got gifted some steaks from Amanda's aunt and uncle, and they're really tender and juicy. And I've been searing them. I've been pan searing them, and
cast iron or something.
And then butter basting them with garlic and a few other things. And as I'm cutting them up, Evelyn just walks over and puts her little chin up to me and goes, "Ah." And I just put a little chunk of steak in her mouth, and she runs off all happy, and then she comes back 10 seconds later and
That's amazing.
It's so much fun. I liked when she was a little kid, or a baby, I guess I should say. But now that she's a little kid, it just gets better and better. She's interactive. She has her own personality. She's goofy. She likes to joke around and have fun. Like, anybody who says toddlers are just a pain, I'm sorry, you just must not like your kids, because yeah, she definitely has her moments, but goodness gracious, she is a joy to be around.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cute. I can't wait to hang out with the whole fam in June and see her interact with Bear and with the other kids.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
No kidding. I'm really looking forward to it. She'll be able to
say Uncle Sam by then, right? She'll be able to be like Coco Sam, right? You know, maybe.
She says Mama and Dada, and that is it these days. So
which one was first though?
Hold on, my camera just did that again. There we go, fixed it. Mama was definitely first. Dada is, she still calls me Mama. If she runs up to me, she goes, Mama, please, like more if she wants something. Yeah. Like, she does a lot of sign language, but she doesn't say much. I'm like, I'm not Mama, and she goes, Dada. And so it's like, okay, she knows I'm Dada, but maybe by then she'll be able to say Uncle Sam. I'm hoping. She just really is not saying much these days, but we'll get there.
As long as she says Uncle Sam and doesn't say Uncle Steven, we'll be good to go.
She might say Unky though, so I don't know.
Unky, that's fine. That's great.
Well, why don't we?
I was thinking about this the other day. Sorry, real quick.
No, yeah, let's.
The other day, and just like I was talking to Mom on the phone on my way down to work on Thursday, because we always do a Thursday phone call in the morning.
Oh,
cool. I have to drive down to our main campus, which is like a 30-minute drive, right as she's getting ready for school. So with the time change, it works out. But I was just talking to her, and she was telling me about some of her like friends and what their kids are doing, and how some of them are like, still living in their parents' basement at like my age, your age, and I was just like, Mom, you did a good job. Like, look at us. It's really cool. Like, I've got a kid and a foster kid. You've got a kid. Like, we both have houses. Steven, Maddie, like what they're doing. Sarah and David. It's incredible to see how far everyone's come, and even just still to have such pure memories as kids running around the house and putting holes in walls and stuff. But to see where we are now, I don't know. It's just really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. Amanda and I talk about that frequently. Like, what is it that distinguishes? And I don't want to say successful. I mean, I guess in a traditional sense, a more successful child versus a less successful child, in that there's some really good parents out there and their kids just don't take flight. Is that still on parenting? How much, how much of that is parenting versus how much of that is like intrinsic within the kid? But then again, there's 4 of us, and there's 2 of, Amanda's and her sibling. Like, we're 6 of 6, right? 6 for 6 right there. We're batting 1,000%. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I think parenting has a huge deal with that, which is terrifying, but also encouraging at the same time.
For sure. 100%. Well, we will stop just babbling. It's hard for us. We're brothers. We catch up. Like, this is our time to just hang out and talk. So I apologize if you're just like, just get to the Tolkien stuff already. Well, calm down. We'll get there.
It's all right. 29 bots have not spoken up and said anything yet. So we're clear. Right, well, we're clear.
If you can get that AI going, go for it. But we're going to jump into some riddles in the dark. And so just if you're new to the podcast, if you're watching on X, we take our 3-in-1 Tolkien, which it looks like Seth's got a brand new 3-in-1.
I was going to show this off a little bit. This was my birthday gift from Mom and Dad, courtesy of my wife telling them that this has been on my wish list for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a moleskin copy. And it is just, like the way it feels and looks, it is just an absolutely stunning book. And
that's gorgeous.
I've been loving it. So thank you, Mom and Dad, and thank you to my fantastic wife as well.
Yes. Big shout outs there.
All right.
Hopefully the muleskin will help me do a little bit better in this Riddles in the Dark.
All right, I just randomly opened up to the Houses of Healing chapter. There's no way.
There's no way. That's amazing. What we do is we take our 3-in-1s and we just randomly open up to a page and we read some dialogue, and without saying any character names, just to see if the other person can get what we're talking about, like the context of what we're talking about, hopefully the chapter name and maybe the characters as well. So Seth, if you've got one, I'll let you first.
I do, and I think it's actually a very good one. I'll be curious to see if you can get this. So here we go. A plain road, though it led through a hedge of swords, said blank. By strange paths has this company been led, and so far to evil fortune.
One more time, please. Sorry.
Not a problem. A plain road, though it led through a hedge of swords, said blank. By strange paths has this company been led, and so far to evil fortune.
Part of me wants to say this is like Boromir talking about the Fellowship, but the other part of me wants to say either Aragorn or Gimli, maybe Gimli, talking about like the Paths of the Dead, the Great Company, passing of the Great Company. Are either of those even close?
I mean, how much do you want from me?
Well, are either of them like this is a yes or no? It's
yes. One of them is very close.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Boromir, Fellowship of the Ring.
What's the context? Because yes, it is Boromir. Yes, it is Fellowship of the Ring. What's the context?
I'm gonna guess this is like coming out of Moria, maybe.
Heck yeah, crushed it. Literally, the very next sentence is, against my will, we passed under the shades of Moria to our loss, and now we must enter the Golden Wood, you say.
Let's go.
That is well done. It's the Moleskine copy.
That's right.
It picks up the slack where you haven't been doing too hot lately.
I know, dude. Phew. Well, I got one. I think I'd be very shocked if you get this. I'm excited to see it, but I'll be very, very shocked.
All right, hit me with it.
Here we go. Then I need say no more, said blank, but do not despise the lore that has come down from distant years. For oft it may chance that old wives keep in memory of word of things that once were needful for wise to know. There's no way.
There is a way.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there.
I know this. That's what's bothering me.
No, you don't.
I do though.
I swear, if you get this, I'll be so mad.
All right, read it to me one more time.
Then I need say no more, said blank, but do not despise the lore that has come down from distant years. For oft it may chance that old wives keep in memory word of things that once were needful for the wise to know.
You're gonna tell me and I'm gonna get so annoyed because I distinctly remember this. So it's either Aragorn or Gandalf. I want to say Gandalf speaking. No. Is it Aragorn?
Nope.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay. Shoot. This is a hard one.
It's very obscure.
This isn't like Merry and Pippin and Fanghorn, is it?
You're getting further out.
Okay.
Not that you're ever close.
No. Oh my gosh.
In this right
I know this is a first. So I know this too, which is because.
You want me to like go up a little bit?
Can you give me just anything else without completely giving it away?
Yeah, it's Fellowship of the Ring, and it is a character that you only see during one snippet of the book.
It's not Gildor, is it?
No. Correct race, though.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's Council of Elrond.
Time's
up. Yeah, you got me.
Farewell to Lorien. It is Celeborn.
Yeah.
He's speaking to the company right before they head out. So.
Yeah. Gosh dang it.
We can just end the podcast now. I'm happy. Like, I don't need to even go into anything else.
Oh, that frustrates me. Because I even have multiple guesses, but dang. Okay. Yeah, well played. That was a good one. That was a very good one.
I appreciate it. Yeah, well, it was the luck of the draw, which is great. Riddles in the Dark goes to Sam for the first time in maybe like 10 episodes. So I'm going to sit and bask in this for a little while, but we'll go into tidings of this fellowship, and we don't have a whole lot of tidings, but just a quick shout out. We have a new 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, which is great. No context to it, so you just love what we're doing, which is great. But shout out to Andrew, who's been listening and sending us some letters. Shout out to Scott, who has been talking about us on Strava as he runs. He listens to us as he is running. He's got his crazy run streak going on.
Yeah, he's definitely more consistent running than we are with podcasting.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And he even went through, did you see the picture of him? Because he ran during like when they got like 2 feet of snow. He still got like 3 miles in 2 feet of snow.
Jeez. Crazy.
It's awesome. But a huge shout out. I don't think of all the Linvilles we have listening who are our cousins, I'm not sure Lydia listens, but she did just get engaged. So that is a huge shout out to Lydia. Well done. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. That's amazing.
Hopefully this guy's good for you. If not, Seth and I will beat him up. But I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will be. I'm
sure her brothers are already, making sure that that's not going to be an issue.
But yeah, he's already outnumbered well enough. I just remember when David came into the family and Steven pushed him off the tramp. It was a good time. Good meeting.
But David fought back. I mean, I remember that too. It was all three of us on the trampoline playing what we dubbed in all our infinite wisdom growing up the push game, which was literally just you're out when you get thrown off the trampoline, no matter how it happens. Pretty much, yeah. David put up a good fight, and he got some good respect from the brothers there. So
they did. I told Ariel I want to have a tramp when we when our kids grow older, and she's like, well, as long as it has the net, going around it. I was like,
the only time a net is helpful is when you're playing mini hockey and you don't want the ball going off the trampoline every 10 seconds. True. That's the only time it's helpful.
It's the only way. Yeah. I love it.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. So we're going to jump into the lore here. And Sam and I decided that we're going to jump into the houses of healing. And this is, a very interesting, kind of a little bit of a lore dump in the book. It's a chapter that I don't want to say that it doesn't move the story forward, but it doesn't move the overall plot forward a ton, but it really gets down to the nitty-gritty of Aragorn and his right to be king. And it does so in an eloquent and beautiful way.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is, just to set the scene a little bit, this is just after the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Aragorn and the Grey Company and everybody that he brought up after defeating the Corsairs, they basically rescued Minas Tirith from certain doom. We have Éowyn killing the Witch King and Merry stabbing the Witch King to help. So both of them are down with the Black Breath, if you will. Faramir is also just barely rescued by Gandalf and Pippin and Baragund from his father trying to kill him and burn him like the heathen kings of old. So there's people in the houses of healing that are incredibly important to this story, that are great characters, and this really is just Aragorn's stepping into his own, if you will. So just as Aragorn came into the city, Eorith was an old wife. She's maybe one of my favorite characters just because of how annoying she is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but as Tolkien puts it, she cried out in dismay after seeing Faramir and said, "Alas, if he should die, what would that there were kings in Gondor, for once upon a time, they say, for it is said in the old lore, the healing or the hands of a king are the hands of a healer, and so the rightful king could ever be known." And so she's just basically being prophetic right now, but she's crying out in agony after seeing Faramir, who is just loved by everybody. He's a captain that everybody wants to follow. I mean, minus Denethor, but there's some great Denethor, Faramir, and Boromir memes out there, by the way. Like, they're just amazing. And so Merry, surprisingly, after stabbing the Witch King, he's close to death, but he's not out of it just yet. He's kind of like bumbling around, and he saw the death of Theoden, and at this point, Pippin runs into Merry and he stumbles upon him, and he sees that Merry's arm is just like not moving, and it's completely numb and everything. And Merry is just, again, he has that black breath over him, or the what's the other term for it? It's black breath, or is it just the black shadow or something?
Yeah, something like that. Just completely discombobulated, kind of like there but not, like out of body. I feel like
Right.
like he's walking, but he's not there.
Yeah, he's just like, he's in a complete daze basically. And he looks at Pippin, and he sees Pippin, and he just is like, "Oh, are you gonna bury me?" And Pippin's like, "Indeed not." Like, and he tried to sound cheerful because he saw just what was going on with his really good friend, and he's like, "No, we're indeed not. We're gonna take you to the houses of healing." And so he takes him to the houses of healing, and they also, is Bor the correct word? Bor Eowyn there as well. Yeah. After they found her. So then Aragorn actually, furled his banner and ordered his men to prepare the tents outside the city. And this is the banner that Arwen made him, that was basically declaring, "I am king." And so he put that away, and he refused to go into the city and stake his claim as the king of Gondor. And he basically said, "It's just not the right time. I'm not doing this." And after Imrahil hears this, Prince Imrahil, he basically says, as a kinsman to the Lord Denethor who has seen him, "This is the correct thing." And Aragorn says, "Yep, I'm not going in the city, but you know what? Moving forward, we really need to listen to Gandalf. Yes, I'll lead this, but we need to lean on Gandalf's wisdom here." And so at Gandalf's request, and at this, I don't know the right word, with Aragorn's plan, he enters the city actually with the cloak of Lothlorien, the elven cloak over his mail. He's covering everything up, and he walks into to heal he goes to the houses of healing to heal Merry, Faramir, and Eowyn. And each of them were growing steadily sicker and on the brink of death. And at this point, Aragorn is just about in there, and this is when Eorth says, "Alas, if he should die." And Aragorn hears this, and he steps in, and he's like, "Well, the king is here," basically.
Yeah, definitely. He goes in and he starts crushing the leaves of Athelas, if you remember, which is kind of like a seamlessly useless herb. A lot of people, like, even back in the Fellowship, he's like, "Sam, get some Athelas for Frodo," and he's like, "Athelas, Kingsfoil? Oh, Kingsfoil, it's like a weed," is what he says. But this has healing powers to it, and I think it goes all the way back to, was it Melian, or who?
Well,
I remember seeing it at some point in Children of Húrin, right? Didn't we?
Yeah, I believe Beleg uses it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay. Yeah, you could be right.
Yeah.
But either way, it's for whatever reason, not a whole lot of people know that it can actually heal things and heal people pretty well. And so Aragorn crushes that up and kind of stirs it in a bowl of warm water. And the sweet scent of the herb actually woke Faramir from his fever. And so Faramir immediately affirmed Aragorn as a superior, as his king, kind of the same way that Boromir did right at his death. So Boromir didn't really get that until he almost died.
Yeah.
Faраmir's coming out of death and realizing it, which I think is kind of an interesting parallel there. So Faramir's like, "Yeah, you're king. I don't want it. Even though I'm the steward, it's yours." But then Aragorn goes and tends to Arwen and tends to, Eowyn, and tends to Merry, who both also returned consciousness as soon as Aragorn touched him and kissed him. Then all throughout the night, Aragorn goes and he heals the wounded of the city. He goes from person to person with the herbs and with his healing powers. And then rumors started to go through the city, that the king of Gondor now walked again, because again of the prophecy of Eorth, of the healer of the king, and that the healing hands of the king, as foretold. But there's something interesting about Aragorn too, is that he at his birth was called Elfstone, or Elisar, which is something that you hear often. It's after the green gem that he wore around his neck. This is something which Galadriel gave to him earlier. But we'll talk more about that here in a second. But when he gets to the houses of healing, if you remember, because Pippin bore Merry to the houses of healing, and he's just kind of there waiting to see if is his buddy's going to be okay, waiting to see if his friends are going to be okay. But Pippin sees him, even though he's wearing this disguise. He's like, "Oh, Strider, like it's you." And Prince Emirhil's there with him, and he kind of scoffs at him.
Yeah.
And Prince Emirhil's there, and Éomer's there, and Emirhil actually looks to Éomer and he asks, "Is thus that we speak to our kings? Like, is that how we should address our kings, with that like lowly name of Strider?"
Yeah, Strider was like
And
a
he's like,
derogatory term that the people of
yeah,
Bree named Aragorn. It was like, that's just
mhm,
Longshanks, that's Strider.
yep, exactly. He's like, should we speak to him that way? And then he's like, well, maybe he will wear his crown in some other name. And then Aragorn, just kind of overhearing all of this, he said to them, "Verily, for in the high tongue of old, I am Elisar, the Elfstone, and
That's a hard one.
Invinyatar, that is, Invinyatar, the renewer." And he lifted his breast, the green stone that lay there, and said, "But Strider will be the name of my house, if ever that be established. In the high tongue it will not sound so ill. Telkantar, Telkantar, I think, yeah,
Yep.
Telkantar, I will be at the heirs of my body." And so Telkantar actually means Strider in Quenya, which is the High Elven language, which is interesting. He takes this name for his entire household. Instead of the very noble name of Elisar, meaning Elfstone, he takes, Strider, like Telkantar, meaning
Yeah.
just long shanks, long legs. But
Yep.
it's very interesting. So then the Elfstone, just a little backstory on the Elfstone that he's carrying. We think this is probably made by Celebrimbor. We don't know, but it would make sense if it was made by Celebrimbor, as he was the big smith of the Second Age. But the stone was green and it had leaves of clear light, and the sun improvised within it, or imprisoned within it, excuse me. And it was claimed that it was granted anyone who bore the gem healing powers that would
Yeah.
heal any hurts of anyone that touched it. So that's a pretty cool aside there about the gem. So there's a lot of like tie-ins here that we're going to get to. But also in Vinyatar, that word, the renewer that Aragorn calls himself, I remember distinctly. If you read, or if you go back and watch the first Hobbit, you see Radagast and he's like trying to heal his hedgehog or whatever. Like, the spiders are attacking his house and it's getting dark. And again, none of this is actually in the Hobbit, but Peter Jackson threw it in there. And Radagast actually chants in Vinyatar as he's trying to heal his hedgehog. So even though it's so weird and like Peter Jackson, why are you adding this into the Hobbit? It was never in there. He still puts in little lore drops that, I mean, it's like, oh, it means healing. That means renewal. So, shout out PJ. Well done. I'm excited to see how you're involved in the Warner Brothers as they got the rights to the Lord of the Rings, and see what might come of that. But I just thought it was cool little tie-in.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Maybe it's because the Hobbit movies just never really did it for me, that I don't remember that, but I remember the scene of him chanting. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I never would have picked out that that's what he was saying. So that is kind of a cool little Easter egg that PJ threw in there. I was gonna ask, when you're reading through this chapter, now you said Aragorn, hearing him, said, "Verily, for in the high tongue I will be Elisar," blah blah. He says "verily" a lot in this chapter, which, if you read the Bible, like, Jesus says "verily" all the time. And I could be wrong, but I don't really
truly.
Exactly. I don't remember the word "verily" really being used all that much in Lord of the Rings up until this chapter.
So I was gonna actually bring a lot of this context in, and I think we talked a little bit about it with Michael way back when, about his book, Return of the King, Jesus in Middle Earth, or something like that, because he mentioned kind of Aragorn being that messianic figure, and this whole chapter just screams Jesus.
Yeah.
I think intentionally. Obviously, again, we talk about allegory all the time and Tolkien's like desires for it, but yeah, the entire chapter just screams Jesus. And verily is, again, one of those things, because anytime the disciples would be talking to him, or even the Pharisees would try to rebuke him, he'd be like, "Very truly I tell you." Pretty much saying like, better listen up, this is true. And for Aragorn to use very similar language, and then also going around being the only person who can heal everybody from their illness, I mean, it's and as he's returning home, like, he's taking his kingship and showing everybody his status. Like, the parallels are very, very obvious to me.
Well, and Tolkien did say, like, it's it's Christian in nature. Like the story of Lord of the Rings is very Christian in nature. So what he's not saying is Aragorn is not a one-to-one for Jesus. He doesn't like allegory in that sense, kind of like Aslan being Jesus and Narnia, right? But he also says that it's impossible for the Christian themes not to be interwoven. And I think this is one of those times where it's about as blatant as it gets, even though it's, you know, it's still very fitting for the story.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
So let's jump into a little bit of kind of the hidden lore behind all this, and then we'll actually break down the healing of each Faramir, Éowyn, and then Merry, because they're all very different and they're all incredibly beautiful in their own right. So just a little background about Aragorn as a healer. He was a descendant of Númenor, obviously, and he actually lived with Elrond and lived under Elrond's protection in his adolescent years after the death of his father. And this was a tradition for the rangers of the line of Isildur, basically. And Elrond is known as the master healer. At one point, Aragorn actually says, "Alas, I wish that Elrond was here, for he's the master healer and the best like of all our race." And it's funny that he says like our race, because he's just as much elf, But anyways, and Elrond actually possesses Vilya, which is the ring that's created out of mithril, and that ring has the power to preserve and to heal. So it's not just Elrond being one of the the last of the Noldor, basically, but it's also the ring that he bears as well. And Aragorn's technically a descendant of Elrond, so. Aragorn actually shows his healing powers a few different times. The first time he does it is with, Sam alluded to this earlier, but it's at Weathertop when the Witch King stabs Frodo, and he uses Athelas for the first time. He also heals Sam's head after a little scuff in the mines of Moria.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he heals his head. I don't think it says that he used any Athelas for that at all. He probably didn't have much with him at that point, but
yeah.
And then Sam alluded to this earlier and spoke a little bit about it, but he also has the LSR, the Elf Stone, which was originally used by, there's a couple of, it's kind of conflicting. There's two different stories, but one of the stories that I kind of like because it's fun, is that it was used by Idril Celebrimbor, who is the daughter of Tuaregon, that marries Tuor, and she used this stone to help heal the survivors from the fall of Gondolin way back in the First Age. Now, somehow, I don't, like I said, it's not clear which story is true, but somehow Galadriel later on either recovers the stone and it's the same one, or she has a new one commissioned, likely by, like Sam mentioned, Celebrimbor. And with this new stone that she either commissioned or it's the same one, I like to think it's the same one, but who knows? She used it in Lothlorien, and she did this really until she got the ring Nenya, which is the ring of adamant, and that one it was just far more powerful than the elf stone. And so this is the point where she gave it to Celebrian. She gave the elf stone to Celebrian, her daughter, who then later passed it on to her granddaughter, Galadriel's granddaughter, who's Arwen. And then somehow this all circles back to Arwen giving it back to Galadriel, who then gives it to Aragorn as they are leaving, they're leaving Lothlorien. And so Galadriel actually says to Aragorn, she says, "This stone I gave to Celebrian, my daughter, and she to hers. And now it comes to you as a token of hope. In this hour, take up the name that was foretold for you, Elisar, the elf stone of the house of Elendil." Like, that's a pretty powerful statement. I really like it.
That's huge. I love that too. Like, as he's, again, this is right after Gandalf's death too, right? So I imagine Aragorn's just like, golly, like, what do we do? I don't know what to do. And she's like, hey, you're the leader. Like, here's a little token of hope. You are who you've been promised to be. Now go live it out. Like, he kind of needs that at different spots in his life to kind of take up that mantle and continue moving forward in that leadership. So I love that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it definitely came at the right time for him. And then moving on, there's no explicit mention of this, but as we mentioned, Aragorn uses King's Foil. He uses Athelas. There's another name for it. It's Quenya, I believe, but I can't say it. I don't remember exactly how to say it, but regardless, there's no mention of other people of the line of kings that were healers that I could find, which was kind of interesting to me for this prophecy to be like, oh, the hands of a healer is the king. Yeah. But Athelas was native to Numenor and then brought back by the Numenorians, and it was planted in Arnor. Now, the lore master and the houses of healing, he basically comes in and he's like, I hear you're asking for Athelas, and it's useless. We don't use anything unless you're like Eorith, who says things that she doesn't even understand. And then he chants a phrase, and it's, when the black breath blows and death's shadow grows and all lights pass, come Athelas, life to the dying in the king's hand lying. So this has to have been used at some point by the kings during their wars against the Witch King of Angmar.
Yeah, it would have to be. I completely agree. Yeah.
Sorry, my screen bugged out on me for a second. I had to fix it for these 65 bots that are watching us.
Yeah, welcome.
So yeah, it's Aragorn has this combination behind him. He has the lineage of Elrond and the lineage of Numenor. He also has the Elfstone, which is a powerful, tool in its own right. And then he has the skill to use Athelas. And as we talk about the healing of each of these individual characters, it's really interesting because Birgil, Baragon's son, comes back and he only finds 6 leaves total. And he says it's been culled like weeks ago, like 2-3 weeks ago. And Aragorn's like, that's fine. And so he uses 2 for each Faramir, Eowyn, and Merry. He uses 2 different leaves. And as Sam gets into this, each leaf does something different, and he uses it in a different way. So it's not just that the leaf is a healing thing. You just toss it in the pot and all of a sudden they're healed. No, Aragorn has to use it in a specific way to recall each of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to have the skill and the foreknowledge to know which one for each different kind of wound, because it'd be pretty lame and kind of lazy writing to just be like, oh, he crushed it up, put it in a stew, and then just like fed it to them and they're all healed. But it's not. It's very specific in ways to which each person was wounded in very specific ways. So starting with Faramir, he kneels beside Faramir, and this is straight from the text here. He says, and those that watched felt some great struggle was going on, which is interesting. For Aragorn's face grew gray with weariness. Again, he's been fighting. He's been on this battle. People are like, hey, you need to go rest. He's like, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to go straight to the house of healing. I'm going to heal people. And ever and anon, he called the name of Faramir. He's calling his name. He's calling him back. He's saying, hey, Faramir, come here, come here. But each time more faintly to their hearing, as if Aragorn himself was removed from them and then walked afar in some dark vale, calling for one that was lost. I love the imagery. It's just beautiful. I mean, you think about it, and this is something else I wanted to bring up during this podcast too. Like, you've literally been on somebody's bedside kind of doing this, right? Like, so what does that imagery mean to you in similar ways? Like maybe doing CPR on somebody who's fading away. Like, what is that? Do you feel the connection there? Is that similar kind of imagery?
The imagery, no, because in those moments, it's never. Well, I can't say never. I've been, with my job as an ICU nurse, I've been around death a lot. I've been around a lot of unexpected death, and I've been around a lot of death that was expected and planned, and the family made the decision for it to happen. I kind of see this more in the latter scenario. However, with somebody that is actively dying, you're trying to keep them awake. And so the closest I could say Aragorn, the way this is written is very different from me yelling somebody's name, like, hey, stay with me, keep your eyes open, stay with me. And then, all of a sudden you see it, they're completely out and you have to start CPR.
Yeah.
But I do see why you ask, but this is, to me, it's somebody that's already in a deep coma getting called out of it, as opposed to approaching the point where they're into that deep coma. Does that make sense? I'd almost, I'd almost, and not to bring too much, allegory into this, but to me, it's more of like the family has decided that their loved one is going to pass, and the medical team, me and the rest of the staff has done everything we can, and they have a preacher come in and pray over their loved one as they pass. That's more what this reminds me of.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, yeah, I was just kind of thinking the way
it's a good question.
The way I thought about it is like, yeah, he's kind of calling for him, and I felt like he was, and I assumed that you'd been, I mean, obviously in this kind of a position many, many times where you just see, either they're gone or they're not, and you have a part to play in that, which is incredible. Honestly, I don't tell you enough, but you, out of all of us siblings, like, you were the only one that could do that job. I hope you know that. Like, it's pretty incredible that God picked you for that specific way to not only heal people, but to bring him back, call him back.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway, Aragorn, he takes the king's foil, the Ethelas, from Burgle, as Seth mentioned, and he crushed 2 leaves. And again, straight from the text, straight away, a living freshness fills the room. So I don't know what this kind of smells like, maybe like a mint leaf, perhaps, but a freshness fills the room, as if the air itself awoke and tingled with a sparkle of joy. Again, just such really...
The imagery is insane.
Yeah, and at once, all hearts were lightened. Like, everyone just like, oh, wow. Like, it's the opposite of weed. You smell weed, it's like, oh, God, it's horrible. But no, this is like, somebody pops an icebreaker and like, hey, anyone want a mint? It's like, oh, cool, sweet, this is great.
Yeah.
For the fragrance that it came to each was like a memory of dewy mornings, of unshadowed sun, some land of which the fair world in spring itself, but a fleeting memory. So again, it's an incredible description of Ethelas, what it can do, and again, it brings the idea of spring, new life. This leaf, it brings to mind. Again, we're in spring right now. We're seeing leaves pop up like crazy, and so it's interesting that is the imagery used, and kind of the memory that comes up with the smell of those things. So, and then Aragorn, like, that's when Faramir awakes, and Aragorn tends to him, and that's when Faramir acknowledges him as king, and all that kind of stuff. So Faramir is healed. Well done, Aragorn. Good job.
Yeah, great job, Aragorn. 1 for 3. Let's move on. But what do you think about Faramir waking up and basically he basically just says, "King, my king, my king. Like, you called me. I'm here. I'm reporting to you. Like, you called me." What is it? Just the difference between Boromir and Faramir and all that, but like, and Denethor even for that matter. Aragorn literally just calls him, and who knows what he was saying, in that great struggle when Aragorn went down that road with Faramir to go get him. But Faramir, and maybe it's just another testament to his incredible character. He's one of my favorites in every, story that Tolkien's written is Faramir. But what do you think it is that made him just snap in it and be like, yep, Aragorn's king?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the word that kind of keeps coming to my mind, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. Normally when I say this, it's absolutely derogatory, but the word is just, the word that comes to mind is passive.
Okay.
Because he knew, obviously, the fate of his dad. Like, he was going crazy. He was trying to burn me alive, and so obviously he was going to die. Like, I assume he, burned alive himself. But I think, again, maybe having some foreknowledge of the prophecy, but also just having this like near life or death experience where he realizes like there's something greater out there, and so he just acknowledges the authority. He acknowledges the leadership then and there. Like, you just called me out of death. You're my king. Whether that's out of like thanksgiving or just out of passivity, like, there's no way I'm going to contest you now. Like, you just saved my life.
Okay. I like that. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question though. Again, characters. Faramir's character is incredible. It's one of the most pure characters that, again, Peter Jackson really royally messed up, but
he did.
In Tolkien's works, I think he's such a noble character that I think it's overlooked sometimes. But Yeah, he's pretty cool. So then Aragorn makes his way to Eowyn. So he heals Faramir first. Do you think there's any significance in the order? Is it just like who's closest to death, do you think?
I think it's who's closest to death. I mean, Faramir was basically dead. He had a fever, like all that stuff. That's why Denethor was going to burn them alive. And then Eowyn, she stabbed the Witch King in the face and killed him. So it's assumed that she probably took a little bit more hurt. Plus, hobbits are just hobbits. Like,
resilient folk.
They're just resilient folk. And Aragorn, I'm sure, understands that. So I think it's just the order of who's close to passing.
I can't believe I just made the connection when Denethor looks at Faramir and says he's already burning. Like, that's in reference to the fever.
Yeah.
Huh. I always thought, like, he's not burning, he's fine, he's alive. But no, he's talking about having fever. Okay.
Yep.
Just a dunce moment.
That's all right. That's all right.
But moving on to Eowyn, so obviously we all know what Eowyn did. She stabbed the Witch King, killed him, but also had a lot of adversity getting through that. And so, again, straight from the text, the chief evil comes through the sword arm, in that there now seems no life, although it is unbroken. Which is interesting that the arm isn't unbroken, but it's just like kind of dead. Like, it's just, there doesn't seem to, it's probably pale. It's probably like just completely limp. There's nothing there. And this is due entirely to, again, the Witch King's spells and kind of the poison that seeped out of him into her. But after debating with the miladies, as put in the doct of Eowyn, Aragorn states that he has the power to heal her body. He's like, I can heal Eowyn, but when she awakens, he's unsure if she will awake to hope or to forgetfulness or to despair. So she's, because again, I mean, she was trying to defend her uncle who had died, and this poison kind of sticks with you in the same way that Frodo will always have that wound from the Witch King. He's like, I don't know. Like, I can heal her. She's gonna come back, but I don't know exactly how she's gonna react to things.
Well, and a lot of that is
You're muted, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I must have been sneezing. Rookie mistake. I must have been sneezing or like snuffling my nose and not wanting you to hear it. Right. But then I leave it muted. Great job, me. I think. Thanks for letting me know so quick instead of letting me talk for 5 minutes.
I should have.
A lot of what you're saying too about Eowyn, like, will she, awake to hope, despair, or forgetfulness? A lot of that has to do with her mentality going into it, right? Like, she looking. She wanted to die. She was looking for death. She wanted to go out. She wanted to have glory in arms, and a lot of this is, due to Aragorn. I don't want to say shunning her, but basically saying, like, we are not meant to be. Like,
friend zoning her.
Yeah, no kidding. And so he really basically tells Éomer, and he says something along the lines of, when she wakes up, I tell you, she loves you more truly than she loves me, for in me she loves the idea of me as king, basically.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to prep Éomer and be like, I don't know how she's going to awake, but it's going to be a lot on you to help heal this process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, with this being, his sister, and I imagine like Éomer, and this is such a great job in the extended movies where you see Éomer just like drop and start grabbing her and holding her on the Pelennor Fields,
just wailing.
Such incredible acting. Yeah, one of those things, just incredible acting. But
yes.
Anyway, obviously he's there, like, please heal my sister, and so Aragorn, he looks on her face, and as Tolkien says, it was indeed white as a lily, cold as frost, and hard as graven stone. But he bent and he kissed her on the brow and called her softly, saying, Éowyn, Éomen's daughter, awake, for your enemy has passed away.
That's beautiful.
Again, just softly getting down on her, kissing her brow, tenderly saying, hey, come back. It's gone. The darkness has passed. Step into the light, pretty much. Then Aragorn again uses 2 more leaves of the kinsfoil, the Athelas, by putting them in steaming water and laving her brow and her right arm. So he puts it on her this time, rather than the last time, just like the smell of it waking him up. This time she's actually kind of lathering it on.
He's like targeting the affected areas.
Yep. And then again, straight from the text, Tolkien goes on to say, Then whether Aragorn had indeed some forgotten power of westernness, or whether it was but his words of the Lady Eowyn was wrought on them, as the sweet influence of herbs stole about the chamber, it seemed to those who had stood by that a keen wind blew through the window. Where's that wind coming from? Probably the west, is my guess.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it bore no scent, but was an air wholly fresh and clean and young, as if it had not before been breathed by any living thing. I mean, that's just so cool. Like, imagine air that's not been breathed by anything, just fresh air. Like,
yeah,
14er. That's what I'm thinking. Like,
yeah,
getting on top of 14er in Colorado.
yeah.
That air that you breathe is just unrecycled completely.
Yep.
I just love it. It's so good. Sorry.
No, that's a amazing comparison. I love it.
Yeah, it's just like unbreathed by any living thing, and came new, made from snowy mountains high, there it is, beneath the dome of stars, or from shores of silver far away, washed by seas of foam. Then Aragorn commanded her to awake, and he left her brother Eomer and said, call her. So he commands her to wake. She kind of wakes up, and then he takes a step back and says, all right, Eomer, step in. Call her, be there for her, take care of her.
It's beautiful. And again, the contrast between like with what people in the room felt when when Faramir was healed versus when Éowyn was healed. And
yeah,
I really like how he goes and he starts softly and he pulls her out of the darkness very gently. And then I imagine she's kind of reluctant to come out of the darkness because she was looking for death, right? She doesn't want to. So he's very gentle at first and he pulls her back a little bit and then he commands her and he says, awake. And then after that, like you said, he takes a step back and he says, Éomer, it's on you.
Yeah. Take it away. Yep.
It's beautiful. So then, now we are 2 for 3 so far. We've got to get to our good friend Merry. We need Merry to heal up here. And so Pippin ran into the room and he saw Merry. And this is, I bet Pippin's kind of like, why are we doing Merry last? Like, we need to save my friend here. Like, he looks at him and he says he's afraid for his friend's life. But then Aragorn, and I love throughout this whole interaction how well Aragorn understands hobbits. But he looks at Pippin and he said to him, but these evils can be amended. So strong and gay a spirit is in him. His grief he will not forget, but it will not darken his heart. It will teach him wisdom, which is fascinating. And so the other two people, their darkness, Aragorn literally had to pull them out of. Whereas for Merry, he really doesn't have to pull him out. So gay a spirit is within him.
He's I mean, again, in stature a child, but also kind of that like childlike just joy. I mean, it's amazing. Like our 5-year-old foster son, there's been so many times where we've literally had to yell at him, pin him down, stop him from hitting himself or other people. And then 2 minutes later, he is laughing, he is having a good time, he's playing with the dog or whatever it is. And it's like, how do you just forget this? But he doesn't forget the grief, as even Aragorn mentioned. Like, his grief will not be forgotten, and our foster son always talks about, like, I want my mom and dad, I want my mom and dad, I want my, so he still feels that, but he can put it aside and experience genuine joy because he hasn't been battle hardened, he hasn't had experienced life in the same way that we have up to this point. He's just going from one thing to the next, whatever brings him happiness and joy.
Yeah, that's an interesting parallel. I like that. And so then again, Aragorn goes down and he touches Merry's eyelids and he calls him by name. And then the fragrance of the king's foil, and I don't know if he crushed it, it doesn't really say what he did with the king's foil in this, or the athelas in this one. But the book says, then the fragrance of the king's foil stole through the room like a scent of orchards and heather in the sunshine full of bees. Which, does that not just sound like the Shire basically?
Absolutely.
He's just like, okay, the scent of orchards and sunshine full of bees. Like, sounds like the Shire to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Merry awoke, and I love this. It's just in true Hobbit fashion. He looks at Aragorn and he's basically like, I'm hungry. Like, oh, I'm hungry.
Where's the salted pork?
Yeah, exactly. And then he he asks Aragorn, he's like, well, I'd really like to smoke, and where's my pipe, and do you happen to have it on you? And Aragorn gives him the snarkiest response, and he says, Master Meriadoc, if you think that I have passed through the mountains and the realm of Gondor with fire and sword to bring herbs to a careless soldier who throws away his gear, you are mistaken. But he says it like in a serious manner, and Merry actually he apologizes and basically just says, I'm sorry, like, we as a people, we say less than we mean. If a jest is out of place, we don't want to overstep. And Aragorn says, basically he says, I know it well, and he says, may the Shire live forever unwithered, and he just like walks away. And I can imagine Mary's just kind of like, oh, okay, that was whatever. And Aragorn is like, the second he turns around, he's like hiding a snicker. Like, he's just laughing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And as soon as he leaves the room, Pippin actually turns to Merry, and I love what he says. He says, my dear ass, your pack was lying by your bed, and you had it on your back when I met you. He saw it the whole time, of course. Like, Aragorn, like, literally saw it, and he could have just been like, yeah, your smoke is right there, your pipe is right there, go for it. But instead he gives him this whole like guilt trip type of thing, just messing with him. And then Pippin's like, okay, really? I love it. I love it. Aragorn just understands them so well.
Yeah, and I love, I mean, again, going back to just the happiness, the joy, the gayness of hobbits, and just how there's such a breathable moment in such a like very serious, intense situation throughout the entire trilogy. They're a breathable moment. Even some of the most intense moments with Frodo and Sam, like, you still have moments of he doesn't want to toss his pots and pans away because he loves them so much. Which I saw again, this is dumb, but I saw a really funny meme that was like, nowadays backpackers, I'm going to cut my toothbrush in half to save weight. And then there's Sam, like, I got 70 pounds of cast iron on my back because I want my pots and pans.
I love it. That's pretty accurate too.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it's just, I love that, again, it's the small things, it's the little things, and the hobbits are just such easygoing folk, people that just enjoy life to the fullest. And again, if we're making allegory, I'm going to, like, that's what Jesus came to bring, and I feel like that's sprinkled in throughout the entire trilogy, regardless of how dark it gets. There's life to the full in the hearts of hobbits, which is it's an encouraging thought, as Gandalf would say.
I like that.
Yeah. And then Aragorn, so he leaves the houses of healing, and he went into the city with the sons of Elrond, which are Elrohir and Eladon, right? Is that?
Yep, Eladon and Elrohir. Yep.
And so he just kind of went through the city, because obviously from the catapults and from the fighting and everything else, not everybody made it to the house of healing. So he just kind of walked around through the rubble and finding whoever he could to heal as he could. And Tolkien puts it this way, and again, this is such messianic language, if you've ever read the Bible, but it says, the king is come indeed, and they named him Elfstone because of the green stone he wore, and so the name which was foretold at his birth that he should bear was chosen for him by his own people. And so the king has come again. He's back. The return of the king, the whole book, the whole name of the book, the king is there. And it's crazy that, like, the story doesn't stop there. That's not the bow on the end of the story yet. They still have to go do more fighting and more stuff going on. But again, that's just a really beautiful picture of, the foretelling of the king that's going to come again. And again, for me personally, as a Christian who's anxiously awaiting the return of Jesus Christ, like, coming again, the king is going to come again. And when he does, he's going to be Envignatar, the renewer.
The renewer.
Which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's like the perfect way to end his time in the houses of healing and taking care of people. And I just love that the name that he was already, prophesied to have was given to him by the people that were going to become his subjects. He's not their king yet, but they grow to love him it's a perfect way for a new king to assert a claim over a kingdom. He's not coming in and just, planting his flag down and saying, I'm king, deal with it. He's serving his own subjects. He's going through and giving of himself to take care of them. and they grow to love him through that. And it sets the stage perfectly for him to become king and for his subjects to, desire him as the king.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. And he's such a noble character, and yet such a strong character, and but the way that he has relationship so specifically with each and every person that he comes in contact with, like with Merry, with Pippin, with even Faramir, who he just had met, and Éowyn, the weird, like, hey, she likes me, I don't like her, but like I care about her, I deeply love her. Even just the wisdom and knowledge of like giving Imrahil the stewardship until he could rightfully take kingship, just the nuances of his character, because this entire quest that he went on from the Council of Elrond was for him to become king, and he knew that. And yet when he got there, he, like you said, he could have just planted the flag, I'm king, deal with it, but he even like passes that off to Imrahil first and foremost, just again as a goodwill gesture of like, I'm going to do this the right way.
Yeah, Imrahil actually even challenges him on it at one point. He says, like, you've already unfurled the banner and came in the name of the king, or do you suffer, your claim to be challenged? And this is when Aragorn's like, no, I don't. He's not being passive, like you mentioned earlier. He's not being passive. He's just he's wise, and he's like, now is not the time. And so he goes in secretly, serves his subjects, and then now is the time.
Yeah. Fantastic chapter to just an incredible story that we talked a lot about, and I just enjoy every time, like just the chills I've gotten reading through this again and spending time with you is awesome. Tolkien's it's so cool reading words that were written 60, 70, 80 years ago, whatever it was, and just enjoying life to the full because of what he did, because of everything that we get to experience.
And don't feel bad for Éowyn, because this is actually where she meets Faramir, and that's a interaction of its own that I absolutely love, where Faramir's like, well, do you love me or do you not? But she actually becomes the princess, I guess, of Ithilien, and marries Faramir, and they meet in the houses of healing, and Faramir even says, like, we both love Aragorn, for he rescued me too. And it's Aragorn doing the right thing and taking a step back, and then Éowyn still gets her happy ending in the end.
One heck of a wingman, man, I tell you what.
No doubt. I mean, he's into older women, so he's not.
That's very true. I love that, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Aragorn is like a very long, loose descendant of Elrond, right? Because his brother, no, I'm blanking. It's not
Elros. Yeah.
Chooses mortality, and then there's a huge long line of people until
thousands of years.
Yeah, thousands of years of people, and then on Elrond's side, it's Elrond, Arwen, Aragorn.
Yep, that's wild.
It's funny. Yeah, it's wild. Great episode, great content. Any last final words on Houses of Healing or anything that we talked about?
No, just thank you for a good conversation. Like you mentioned, this is our time to kind of hang out, and I know it's been weeks. It's been crazy in both our lives, but it's nice to have a little respite, or you say the word better, the renewal, Invenyatar. That's almost how, just sitting down and chatting feels is renewed. So thank you.
100%. Can't wait till we can do it in person in June, but it's good to utilize technology like this in the way that we can. I've just been like looking at my video and seeing this sign behind me, which is
it looks like Rage the whole time.
I look like Frankenstein or something. It's just out of my ears
a little bit.
But no, the sign is supposed to say it says courage is found in unlikely places. It's an actual Tolkien quote, but definitely makes me look just weird.
That's all right. But, you look like one of the villains from VeggieTales. Maybe it is a Frankenstein episode. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think yeah.
I think it is a Frankenstein episode of VeggieTales, but yeah.
Yep.
Maybe it's a hair. I don't know.
High praise. Love it. That's probably a great place to call for aid, I imagine. I need aid. Please send aid my way.
In the form of your wife.
Right. Yeah. Please come home. We are calling for aid. We are breaking the halls of Medicel. Then we are shouting, Gondor calls for aid. Will you, Rohan, answer? So if you like the podcast, please like and subscribe. Leave us a review. Shoot us on X. Just whatever you want to do. We'd love to hear your Tolkien story, too. We've had a couple of those come through our email at wekpodcast@gmail.com. So we'd love to read more of those. We just love to hear how you got into Tolkien because obviously for Seth and I, it's made such an impact in our lives. And it's a great place to just have good fellowship and just community through this. So leave us any thoughts that you have on any of these episodes. We have a whole read through of Children Hurin you can talk about. We don't really care about Rings of Power, but you can send us thoughts on that too. Just anything Tolkien that you want to share us with. We will read it here on the podcast and have some dialogue there. But we don't know really what to expect next. So you'll be as surprised as we are. But until then, we thank you for joining us for some well-learned comforts, and we bid you a very fond farewell.